Traditionally, we've had this land rush where it's the first day that the campground's open, and people are they're all lined up, ready to go. And this video shows you sort of that process. There's a bit that comes before that where they're actually kind of lined up, and then this is the mad rush for that special spot in the campground.
Neighbors, welcome to the Music Festivals podcast. This is the show that helps you get to know music festivals, festival venues, and campgrounds before you go. I'm your host, Neighbor Nate, and I'm glad you're in the neighborhood.
Welcome back, neighbors, to episode number 82 of the Music Festivals podcast. This is the show that helps you get to know music festivals, festival venues, and campgrounds before you go. And as always, I am your host, Neighbor Nate, on a rainy day here inside the motorhome. I am delighted to welcome our guest today, who is the Executive Director of the Walnut Valley Festival, and none other than the 54th Walnut Valley Festival. It's been around for a while. Welcome, Bart. This is Bart Redford. How are you?
Thanks, Nate. I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is exciting that it's your 54th year on the festival, and I do want to mention that you guys are also a presenting sponsor, so thank you for that. A presenting sponsor of Music Festivals podcast. It sounds like your father was one of the founders of this festival. Just give us a little bit of the background of this family affair.
Yeah, so 1972, he was actually part of a trio of people that founded it. Stuart Mossman was a maker of flying guitars. Mossman guitars are still known and highly prized. And he ran a factory right here in Winfield, Kansas. And he had somebody working for him by the name of Joe Merritt, who also knew my father, Bob Redford. And they came to my father, who was an insurance salesman at the time, and asked for help with setting it up and everything. And so they got it started. 1972, Winfield was not known at that point as a music mecca, but they got it going. They had some tough years, and in the end, my father ended up being the director of it, and eventually the owner, and he ran it until 2016 when he passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that, but they built this massive legacy festival that, as an Americana festival, draws between 11,000 and 15,000 attendees. That's huge. What a thing to do. This is happening September 16th through the 20th. And so this is number 54 for you guys. It sounds like, from what I've seen online, a lot of people who come from afar call it Winfield. Walk us through kind of the name of the festival and what it was originally and how it evolved.
We actually went through several name changes. I'm not sure who was doing the marketing, but eventually I think they landed on Walnut Valley Bluegrass Festival. And then, we ended up, I say we, but they ended up changing the name probably in the late 70s, early 80s to just Walnut Valley Festival, because we're really more of a bluegrass festival. We have all kinds of, you mentioned Americana, folk music. We've got some Celtic, actually a pretty big component of that, and Western swing, cowboy music. So,
that's amazing. It's such a big festival, and you guys actually had so many videos. So there's this thing that has come up called the Land Rush. Talk to me a little bit about what the Land Rush is.
Yeah, so it's crazy. We've had we've done this so long. We have people that come in and set up a camp, and they've camped in that same spot for 20, 25 years. They want to be in the same location. They all have their names and their own rituals and everything. And so, getting that special spot for them is really important. And traditionally, we've had this land rush where it's the first day that the campground's open, and people are they're all lined up, ready to go. And this video shows you sort of that process. There's a bit that comes before that where they're actually kind of lined up, and then this is the mad rush for that special spot in the campground.
Yeah, it's really insane watching this all unfold, and hat tip to the person who got to fly and shoot this. It looked like it was a pretty cool flight. Uh, you guys have 4 official performance stages, and likely this is probably what you need with a festival this big. What happens across those? Talk to me a little bit about the map of the festival, where the geography, where are people walking to and from to get to the performances.
So the biggest is, I call it the main stage, but it's right in front of the grandstands. It seats about 6,000 people. We've got a nice track in front of it, and it's a big stage. The nice thing about having 4, stages is we also have one that is a dedicated contest stage. That's where all the instrument contests happen. And then we've got 2 that, one's a little bit bigger than the other. The third stage is really more of an intimate setting, maybe 250, 300 people. And then stage 2 is a very nice place. It's got a natural sort of amphitheater, people sitting up on a dike. And so you get really your choice of what kind of experience you want to have as a fan. And the nice thing is you'll see these bands play on each one of those stages at various times. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Are the sets overlapping, or is it back to back? How do they work?
They do. You really have to map out sort of who you want to see and at what time. We've got a booklet that we put out that sort of showcases it, but we also have an app where I like the app because you can choose, I want to see this person. You see all their scheduled times and which stage, and you can get your own personal schedule set up.
Okay, we'll definitely put a link to the app in the show notes, because that's going to be something important to have for folks who want to go. And I want to go ahead and move into getting into the lineup as well as some of the other stuff that happens at the festival. Before we do that, I do want to recognize that we want to thank our supporting sponsors, Harvest Hosts, D-Law Coffee, Florida Sand Music Ranch, and the Will McLean Foundation. Without these guys, this little nomadic ethnography of ours would not be possible. So thank you to all of those brands that are helping us on this tour. So this festival has a lot of workshops, instrument demonstrations, as well as youth programs. And that's really interesting because some of these youth are probably getting in front of some of the people who are on stages performing. Talk a little bit about the educational aspect of Walnut Valley Festival.
From the get-go, it was really viewed and billed as a family-friendly event. And so they would have craft demonstrations. We have an arts and crafts fair. It's always been tied to it, which is kind of unusual for a music festival. We also have a lot of luthiers and instrument sellers there as well. We've had Andy May's acoustic kids here for quite some time, and that's really a showcase to get them up on stage. These young performers get a chance to be seen and heard. And then we have a feisty music camp that we started. It's probably been 6-7 years ago, and it's more for a younger crowd. They have instrument petting zoos. They have some kids concerts, some dancing, that sort of thing. And then we just added a youth songwriting workshop that's run by a couple of talented people that really focuses on the teens and gives them some experience in, how do you write a song? How do you market a song? That sort of thing. It seems like we have kids crafts. The instrument workshops that happen before festival, they're really designed for adults, and they're a chance to learn guitar from some of the top masters. We have a banjo. We try to hit all the traditional folk instruments. If somebody's trying to learn the mountain dulcimer, this is their chance.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about this year's lineup. Bing Futch is on it. We've talked a little bit about that, but also 80 Proof Alice I'm familiar with, as well as Pixie and the Partygrass Boys. Walk us through some of the other bands and individual performers who are going to take the stage, and how can attendees plan to make sure that they see who they want to see?
Bing Futch has actually been hired this year as an ambassador of the festival, and that's because he's just been so great to us, and we love him. He's one of my favorite performers, and he really does a great job of sort of telling the story of Winfield and what he likes about it. spends a lot of time on the campground stages, and so this is the first time we've hired somebody as a sort of an ambassador. So he's going to do some work beforehand, and then during festival he's going to be doing a lot of collaboration with folks. We generally hire about a third of the lineup are folks that are just completely new, first timers, and those include the High Bluegrass Orchestra from Norway, Mama Said String Band, a young band with some amazing vocals, the Song from the Road Band, which is a more established bluegrass band, and Cody Sisters out of Colorado. It's actually a trio, and they've got some really amazing vocal harmonies. Excuse me. I'm trying to think that we've got some other new bands, but we've also got John McCutcheon. Comes pretty much every year. We've got Chris Jones and the Night Drivers, which is a very established award-winning band. Becky Buller is going to be here this year. John Lowell Trio. You mentioned Pixie and the Partygrass Boys. There's also Runa, Shane Hennessy, the Steel Wheels, great band, and people love them, and Socks in the Frying Pan, which is a Celtic band that our folks just love it.
That's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. It is just jam packed with amazing musicians. And this is just the people who are performing. This is outside of the National Flat Picking Championships. I would imagine there's crossover, but this is one of the world's most prestigious acoustic competitions. And it's not only for flat picking. You guys do it for mandolin, banjo, fiddle, hammer dulcimer, mountain dulcimer, on and on and on. How do these contests work? So that's what I'm curious about, is that you have music that is essentially an art, right? And now we're making it a competition because it is about accuracies and speed and technique and things like that. Walk us through how that competition works.
So there are specific rules for each one of those. The fiddle competition runs a little bit differently than, say, the banjo or the guitar. But the thing they have in common is that there's a person sitting at the mic. They may have an accompanist, but the mic only will be picking up the person who's actually competing, the person who's playing. And that mic feeds into a trailer that is not anywhere around where they're playing, where we have 3 to 5 judges, depending upon the competition, and they're scoring. They've got a score sheet. The criteria is pretty much set out on our website. And they've only got a set number of songs to play in order to show the judges, what they can do. So it's fun to be there and to be watching these people playing and trying to figure out, okay, that's our winner, or that's our second place, or that sort of thing. And sometimes you're right, sometimes you're completely off. But I really have a lot of confidence in the judges, the quality of judges that we have every year, and obviously. People have confidence in that as well, because it really is. They're nationally and internationally known, and we have a lot of international performers. People come from Eastern Europe, or a lot of folks from Japan, some from China. So,
that's incredible, and it would be something to see. And hats off to the folks that are brave enough to get into the competition, because I imagine there's some world-class talent that's taking the stage. And then hopefully they all move to the campground for picks afterwards. So what does that look like? What time do you guys shut down the actual stages?
It varies, but generally from like 12:30, 12 to 12:30, somewhere in that. We're definitely shut down by 1:00 in the morning. Some bands run over, and it's not only the contest participants who immediately go down to the campground to play, but also some of our lead performers will walk off a stage and then go play on stage 5 or stage 6, 7, 11. There's a whole slew of them, but stage 5 and stage 6 are probably the most well-known.
Well, Bart, this sounds like a fantastic festival. Again, the 54th Walnut Valley Festival is happening at the Winfield Fairgrounds in Winfield, Kansas. Say that a couple times fast. And that's September 16th through the 20th, 2026. You can get your tickets at wvfest.com. And Bart's been kind enough to offer us a discount code. If you use the code MFPSAVE, that's MFPSAVE, you get $25 off your passes, and that code expires July 31st. So if you do think that you want to go and check out the Walnut Valley Festival, buy your tickets now, get them at a discount rate, and go check this out, because it sounds like it's going to be fantastic, from competitions to performances to picks. And I imagine the crowd's probably pretty cool too. So
They are definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nate.
Well, Bart, thank you so much for being on. And that is all we have for this week, neighbors. Thanks to Bart Redford for getting us all the preview information on the 54th Walnut Valley Festival. That's going to be held at the Winfield Fairgrounds in Winfield, Kansas, September 16th through the 20th, 2026. And you can get your tickets at wvfest.com. And if you use the code MFPSAVE, you're going to save $25. So again, MFPSAVE, save yourself some money, get the tickets, and take the family for workshops and performances and campground picks and all the cool stuff they're doing. Remember that offer expires July 31st, and that is MFPSAVE to save $25 off your passes. Make sure to visit musicfestivalspodcast.com and subscribe to the Neighborhood Monthly newsletter. We are doing this as we are on tour. If you're already on the list, you got the 60-day update from our first 60 days on tour, with a lot of great videos from where we've been, what we've done, who we've seen, and the music that we have just been jamming to along the way. You can subscribe there to also get daily updates on tour videos, live stream announcements. There's even a playlist where you can get daily shorts. I also want to thank our supporting sponsors, Harvest Hosts, D-Law Coffee Company, Florida Sand Music Ranch, and the Will McLean Foundation for all their support in making this tour possible. If you are listening to the audio podcast, you should stop doing that and just watch the videos. You can do that on Spotify, Apple, and most importantly, YouTube. Head over there and subscribe, and make sure to hit the bell on the Music Festivals podcast channel, because that is where the real fun is happening. You can join the conversation in those comments, or comments on Instagram, Facebook. We're on all the socials. You know where they are. As always, I am Neighbor Nate, and I hope to be your neighbor at a festival very soon. Perhaps that will be at Rhythms on the Rio in Del Norte, Colorado.
All right, concentrate. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you go, I see you go, and we'll all go together to the wild mountainside, all around the blue river. When you go, I see you go. Give yourselves a round of applause. That was absolutely majestic.